Good day. Hi, I'm Doc Martin, the lone journalist for KRAZ TV. Another great book for review. This book review is early morning. Anyway, it's called Revolutionary Roads by Bob Thompson. Searching for the war that made America independent and all the places that it could have gone terribly wrong. Boy, wasn't that the truth. Anyway, fascinating. I finally learned the term of the people who, they're called obsessives. Revolutionary obsessive people, that's all they do is in their spare time is they learn the history and they become authorities. This is a very unique book. It's about modern day places where you can go and still find markers of the old Revolutionary War back east, and placards and markers, and there are societies that get together and do, with the military it's called staff rides. And you get a guy that knows what he's talking about. He takes some of the young military officers and they go out on the field and do a review and talk about the history and where the blunders happened and surprises and all of that. So it's really a modern story about all the places that have been obscured now, but still the traces are there. And this guy said he wanted to do a unique style book, which it turned out to be so fascinating, and that's why I loved it. So anyways, it's by 12. That's the name of the book. Publisher's 12. There's Bob Thompson. Let's see. Author photo by Pete Thompson. Must be his brother. Anyway, Bob Thompson is the author of Born on a Mountaintop, an on-the-road exploration of the real and legendary Davy Crockett. As a longtime feature writer for the Washington Post and editor of its Sunday magazine, he was known for his pieces on the intersection of history and myth. So that's how he did it. His style is to go to these places in a vehicle and seek out the modern remnants. In a ride-along tradition of Sarah Vowell, Tony Horwitz, and Bob Bryson, Revolutionary Roads revisits the pivotal figures and key turning points of the American Revolutionary War. Revolutionary Roads takes readers on a time-traveling adventure through the crucial places American independence was won and might have been lost. You'll ride shotgun with Bob Thompson as he puts in more than 20,000 miles on his car, not to mention his legs, walks history-shaping battlefields from Georgia to Quebec, and hangs out with passionate lovers of revolutionary history whose vivid storytelling and deep knowledge of their subject enrich his own. Braiding these elements together into a wonderfully entertaining whole, with a reporter's abiding concern for getting the story straight, which he does, he has written an American Revolution book like no other. The Revolutionary War is one of the greatest stories in all history, an 8-year epic filled with self-sacrificing heroes, self-interested villains, and more interesting, all the shades of complexity of humanity in between. It boasts large-scale gambles that sometimes paid off, but usually didn't, as well as countless tiny, fraught tipping points like a misunderstood order in a South Carolina cow pasture that could have altered the course of the war. The drama is magnified when you consider what was at stake, the fate of a social and political experiment that would transform the world. Yet we don't know the story as well as we should, or how easily the ending would have changed. Boy, that is for sure. It's a lovely book. We got this book at the Tucson Pima County Public Library. It has some plates in it. They're wonderful. A lot of them are paintings. There's a picture of George when he was 40 years old. Some of the generals, some of the battle scenes. Henry Knox, he was the artillery commander, and he did a great job. Some of these guys were just fantastic. There's Burgoyne. He was a good general, but he got caught out. There was some Indian leaders from Native American. There's Benedict Arnold. True story. Every bit of this is true. There's Fort Ticonderoga that the Americans took and then lost again. Lafayette. So, it's just a great story. Let's see, there's some more plates here at the back. This one will make you weep. This is Molly Pitcher. That was not her name, though. Her name was something else, Mary. But she swabbing the cannon out. And, of course, black soldiers. This was, well, it doesn't help. But these guys were from Rhode Island, and one of the guys there had his father help finance a whole a regiment of just black soldiers, and they fought well. They figured there were nearly 5,000 African Americans, and some were promised their slavery, and most of them went to the British, who told them that if they weren't owned by a British loyalist, but owned by the rebels, and they fought for the British, they would be emancipated and given their freedom. So this is Tarleton, Benaste Tarleton, right here. He was savage. He did massacres and was a fast mover, and he eventually got caught out and lost, but he survived the war and then lived to be an old person, went back to England. So, and let's see, Rambouillet. This is Cowpens. The Battle of Cowpens in South Carolina is the most pivotal battle. And this is Cornwallis at Washington Cornwallis at Yorktown, which was the last final battle in 1781. So 6.5 years this war went on. Starts out with Washington thinking that he's gonna, well, it starts with Boston and Concord and Lexington, of course, but it's talked about Washington fortifying and thinking he was going to hold New York. He barely escaped with his life and got across the river. Then they were all starving, and the armies only had 1 year or something, and then when it was time to go home, they just left. And so it was very frustrating for Washington to get a dedicated army and keep it. So it talks about his moving where he Valley Forge in Trenton when he went across the river and surprised the Hessians, and got that crucial win there. But there are just so many times that that they made blunders that sometimes they caused, massacres and captures. One capture of Americans were 3,000 soldiers at one time, and they were taken out to ships in the middle of New York harbor called prison ships, and they languished there, and a lot of them died in that way. I think I did a book review many years ago on that. So this continuing saga is something else. Anyways, Benedict Arnold, he was actually a good general and served Washington, and Washington never had a clue. But John Andre was the one who was hung. Benedict Arnold was not hung, but he was a traitor, and he had to disappear. And then he stayed in the American scene, though, with the English and helped them try to defeat the Americans. So he was a real turncoat. But Benedict Arnold lived to be many years and went to England too. So a lot of them after the war went back to England and got out of there. But several of the generals were shot and killed right in the war. And that's usually what they did, is they all aimed for the officers. And the redcoats, they did a lot of bayonet. And the secret to in all the wars is that if they got flanked and they couldn't cover their sides, they were gone. If they got behind you, well, that was it too. So they did a lot of shoot and run and guerrilla style tactics. They had very little cannon, but Knox did confiscate the cannons at Ticonderoga and carried them around for a while. And he had grueling tales of hauling 300-mile cannons 300 miles through ice and snow and stuff to get them into position and stuff. So it's just a fascinating story. But Bob Thompson, he's met all these different societies, the Arnold Expedition and South Carolina, American Revolutionary Societies, and everywhere. There's just a lot of people that get together and have meetings and reenactments. They still do reenactments where they cross rivers and stuff like that. It's just a fascinating, fascinating story. You know, I'm already 12 minutes into this, and I can't even tell you all of it. It's going to take so long. So I'll probably end up here in a few minutes, but you have got to get this book. It's called The Revolutionary Roads, Searching for the War That Made America Independent and all the places it could have gone terribly wrong. We almost lost it by a hair's breadth in almost every battle. I don't know. Probably the losing of the war by England, well, they didn't really, well, they did lose in a way, but was their blunders. And they were royally appointed, and they took their time, and it was slow moving, and they had large armies, and they had supply problems too, and they would always forage off of the neighborhood and rob the people, and then when they did take over a place, the people that were loyalists ran with them and cleaned out and took their possessions and ran with the army and with the British and left. And then some of them got on ships and went to England or went to Canada. And then the houses were taken over. And some of the fine homes, well, Washington had them as headquarters in certain places. Nathaniel Greene, oh God, the names just go on, the great Gates, Horatio Gates, and he lost a couple, but he was famous, and there was a lot of really daring raids. And like I said, in Rhode Island, the experiment, but Washington was against having black people or the slaves having guns and stuff, because he was a slave owner, and he was afraid if he gave them too many guns, they'd revolt. That's mostly what they thought about. So it was a sad time, it was a weird time, but it's a true story. And just seeing where it's at today, so you're standing in Walmart looking across the fields, and shops were with little placards on the front saying, well, this was the site of the home that burnt down, and and stuff like that. It's just a fascinating, fascinating story. So anyways, I'm going to take out of here by letting you know that you can get this book at your library also. It's called Revolutionary Roads by Bob Thompson. Get the book and learn and value our freedom, because a lot of people did a lot of things back then. And America is what it is today because of these people. Thanks for watching KRAZ TV, and keep reading.